preset is something that I use all the time, and I want to show you how you can create them and how you can use them. So this is a photo I shot in El Matador, one of the most nicest scenic beach in Malibu, California. And what I do is I'm going to show you, I'm going to retouch it, but then I'm going to sort of save that retouch, create it as a preset, and see how it can apply on different photos. So I always start by opening up the shadows and, bring down the highlights. And then I'm doing my black point and then my white point. In this case is really far away. Okay. This is going to be a sunset photo, so I need to do a white balance that's going to make sense for sunset. So I think maybe a little warmer, a little more magenta, something like this. I'm going to add some contrast. And, most of the time when you shoot a photo, you always have to darken kind of the sky to focus the attention of the viewer. So I'm going to go for the gradient here. I'm going to click and drag. And then I'm going to not use this, but just lower a little bit the exposure on top. That makes a huge difference. And then I'm going to do the same thing here at the bottom. Okay. And usually what I do for sunset photos, on this one, the sunset is really strong. So that's all I'm going to do. So I kind of like that. I'm like, oh, okay, how can I apply this on another photo? Well, before we save it into as a preset, let's go into some other settings here. Let's go to effect. Let's maybe add, so what I like to do on my landscape photo is add a little bit of texture to make the texture come out and minus the clarity. By minusing the clarity, often you can take care of different halos you have around. It's kind of cool. Maybe add a little bit of dehaze. Sharpening. Let's do the sharpening. So it's, at least a basic sharpening. I mostly shoot at 100 ISO. So I have this formula that I showed you before where I put 10 in a noise reduction and about 80, 90 in the sharpening. Okay, so we get a really sharpened photo. It's really cool. Remove chromatic aberration. Yes, we can put that in a preset. And about lens correction, we can totally do that. It detected what it shot with. Defringe, I'm not going to do it. And geometry, I never put into a preset. So I'm kind of happy with what I did. And let's see if we can save this as a preset. So I'm going to click here on preset. And you see there's 3 dots here. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say create a preset. Okay, and I'm going to create a new group. Let's call it Lightroom CC test. Okay, and this one, so I create a group, and this one, let's call it sunset. So it's going to create a sunset preset in the Lightroom CC test group. Okay, and then here you can select what you want to be in the preset. So by default, tools are not activated. Tools I did use, remember, the gradients on top and at the bottom. So I want them to be included. So I'm going to use that. Geometry, I don't care because I didn't use it. Optics, yes. Details, yes. Remember, we did the sharpenings. Effect, we did. On effects, we did a bit of texture minus clarity, remember? So that's kind of cool. Colors, yes, of course. We did the white balance. I didn't add any vibrance and saturation because on sunset photo, when you add contrast, it adds a lot of saturation already. Lights, remember we did the shadows, the highlights, the whites, the blacks. So all that gets saved. And the tools, we have the linear gradient and the radial gradient. You see brush are not included here. And profile, Adobe Color, which is a default profile. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to save this as a preset. Now let's take another photo like this one. Let me press Shift R to reset it. And now we can see here I've got lots of presets. I'm going to close most of them because we're going to be using this group here called Lightroom CC Test. And let's click here on preset and check this out. It's not perfect, but it did a lot of work. We moved at least 20 sliders. So now I can go in there. I can make my black point. I can make my white point. This is too much. Maybe add a little bit of contrast. Maybe lower the photo. I can, go in there and adjust a little bit the white balance. But, I know that it's a little too dark to me. But I know a lot of things, is ready there. I know that, my sharpening is done. My lens correction is done. My basic exposure. My basic white balance. It's a great time saver. And I really advise you to take the reflex of working with presets very early on. So now that I've done correction to this one, I could go in there, and that's what I do. I could go into preset, same folder, and call this one Sunset 2, the return of the sunset. And then let's see if we've got some kind of as a sunset kind of photos. Yeah, maybe this one. So I'm gonna Shift R to reset it. And then let's see if we can apply sunset 2 or sunset 1. That's sunset 1, that's sunset 2. Very similar, but kind of cool, you know, being able to do that. And you will see. So I advise you, like, of course, if I go onto a daylight photo and apply a sunset preset, it's okay, but it's not made for that, you know. So that's how we do color preset. Next video, we're going to do some black and white presets.